You're standing in Berea, Ohio. It's late July, and training camp is in full swing. Sweat clings to helmets. Cleats dig into the turf, and every rep feels like a referendum on the future. That's especially true at the quarterback position, where 4 names rotate under center. But only one name is lighting up the sideline chatter, grabbing veteran attention, and forcing the front office into sleepless nights. Shedeur Sanders. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. And according to Riddick, that attention isn't sitting well with Browns management. Riddick didn't mince words. In a recent media segment, the former NFL exec and analyst made one thing painfully clear. The Cleveland Browns are afraid. Not a failure, not of another rebuild. No, they're afraid of being wrong. Specifically, they're afraid that Shedeur Sanders, a 5th-round pick, might expose their flawed draft philosophy by outperforming Dillon Gabriel, their more highly touted 3rd-round selection. And if that happens, it's not just about who starts. It's about who has an answer for it. Riddick called it exactly as fans and players are starting to see it. Shedeur is outplaying expectations by a mile. His camp numbers are consistent. His leadership is emerging, and his understanding of the offense is sharper than most anticipated for a rookie drafted outside the top 100. In one particularly telling scrimmage session, Sanders went 8 for 11 with 3 touchdowns. Against a second-team defense, sure, but with a second-team offense, too. Meanwhile, Gabriel continues to sputter with the ones, struggling to move the ball, string plays together, or assert command. So naturally, the question becomes, why isn't Shedeur getting more reps with the starters? According to Riddick, it's not a mystery. It's protectionism. The front office made its bet on Gabriel. That's where the draft capital went. That's where the PR talking points were handed out post-draft. That's the quarterback the analytics team backed. Now that a late rounder is making that decision look like a misfire, the coaching staff is being asked, either explicitly or implicitly, to slow the roll, to make it look like a competition, but keep the optics safe. But it's not safe. It's actually deeply unstable. Because Shedeur's momentum isn't a fluke, it's a freight train. Every practice rep he nails, every receiver he hits in stride, every audible he calls that exposes a weak blitz, it all makes the Gabriel pick look worse. And that's the fear Riddick is getting at. Not that Sanders might fail, but that he might succeed too obviously, too loudly, and too soon. Enough that the entire quarterback room politics start collapsing. There's a name for that in NFL front offices. Exposure. And most execs will go to great lengths to avoid it. Riddick didn't stop at the surface, either. He peeled back the curtain on the team's 4-quarterback logjam, which he called a form of self-sabotage. With 4 passers rotating snaps, Gabriel, Sanders, Joe Flacco, and Kenny Pickett, no one is getting enough reps to create true separation. That's not a coincidence, Riddick argues. It's by design. It creates plausible deniability. If no one wins a job clearly, then the team can go with the safer option without having to explain why the best player never really got a shot to prove it. But what happens when one of them does separate? What happens when one quarterback keeps making the right read, keeps scoring in the red zone, keeps turning heads in the locker room, even when the odds are stacked against him? That's where Shedeur Sanders lives right now. Despite minimal support, limited playbook exposure, and the least reps of the group, Sanders is thriving. Veterans like Myles Garrett are taking notice. Receivers are requesting reps with him. Even players who were skeptical at first, who maybe rolled their eyes at the primetime lineage or the social media fanfare, are changing their tune because leadership speaks volumes in silence. And Shedeur's command the huddle, his protection calls, and his cool under pressure are doing all the talking. The locker room knows. The front office knows. And now the media knows, too. That's what makes the current moment so combustible. You have a franchise that hasn't had a stable, respected quarterback since what Bernie Kosar. You have fans desperate for a winner, a culture shift, something to believe in after years of misfires. And now you have a young quarterback stepping into that vacuum, not with entitlement, but with fire, with poise, with answers. But the Browns' leadership is dragging its heels. Why? Riddick didn't use the word corrupt, but he danced close. He painted a picture of a franchise more concerned with protecting its ego than putting its best foot forward. That's the kind of front office behavior that alienates locker rooms. It's how divisions grow between the suits upstairs and the players on the field. And in a league as competitive as the NFL, where every inch matters, that kind of internal fracture can derail entire seasons. Riddick's words weren't just a critique, they were a warning. Keep playing favorites, he said. Keep forcing square pegs into round holes because they fit your draft board narrative. But don't be shocked when the locker room checks out. Don't be shocked when Shedeur or someone like him goes elsewhere and becomes a star. Don't be shocked when the fans lose faith, not just in your decision-making, but in your integrity. Because that's the ultimate cost of this kind of self-sabotage. It's not just about the quarterback room. It's about trust. The trust between players and coaches. Between ownership and personnel. Between fans and the shield. And once that's broken, it doesn't come back easily. Riddick's analysis has started to reverberate across national coverage. Suddenly, talking heads on other shows are asking why Shedeur isn't getting first-team reps. Beat writers are timing his snap count versus Gabriel's. Fans are posting side-by-side camp highlights and asking why not the guy who's clearly better. That's the power of a truth bomb from someone who knows the game inside out. Riddick isn't just a talking head. He's a former pro scout and director of player personnel. He knows how this stuff works behind the curtain. And if he's calling it out, you better believe it's resonating inside Berea. So what now? Well, Shedeur continues to do what he's always done. Show up, show out, and say little. He's not lobbying for the job in interviews. He's not creating headlines. He's letting his throws do the talking. He knows the politics. He knows what he's up against. But he also knows the value of undeniable performance. Eventually, it gets too loud to ignore. The Browns face a critical decision in the next few weeks. Do they lean into the talent that's emerging before their eyes, or do they keep betting on an outdated draft strategy that has failed them time and again? Do they give the locker room the leader it's organically gravitating toward, or do they show a less inspiring option down everyone's throat to save face? It's a crossroads, a pivotal one. And if they choose ego over excellence again, they're going to learn the hard way that the fans, the players, and yes, even the media, are done giving them the benefit of the doubt. This is Shedeur Sanders' moment. And the Browns have to ask themselves, are they willing to finally get out of their own way? Because if they don't, they won't just lose a quarterback competition. They'll lose the quarterback of their future. As the sun sets on the final days of training camp, one truth is glaringly obvious. The story here is no longer about potential. It's about reality. And reality is telling Cleveland they found something rare. It's fair to ask, how did Shedeur Sanders get here? A fifth-round pick, buried behind veterans and higher-drafted rookies, facing a depth chart designed for caution. Yet here he stands as the undeniable leader of a quarterback room, even without the official title. Because here's how truth breaks through when the tape shows it, when the locker room rallies around it, when coaches update playbooks for it. Despite starting the summer as the underdog, Sanders has refused to stay there. It started in the small things. The extra reps after practice, the film study deep dives, the way he communicates with receivers and linemen to build timing, not by force, but by chemistry. It wasn't media training. It was fundamentals. And in a football world dominated by optics, fundamentals still win games. His confidence isn't arrogance. It's earned. That's what separates him from coaches' concerns about confidence issues in youth. Sanders didn't walk in with headlines. He walked in with compasses. And now the entire facility is orienting around him. There were days we got glimpses, throws into tight coverage that froze defensive backs, audibles called at the line that adjusted protections on the fly, a perfect 2-minute drill in slick conditions. He looked less like a rookie and more like a quarterback who's been here longer than he had. And while Gabriel, Pickett, and Flacco rotated through under center, Sanders quietly climbed the ladder, not by reps, but by results. What happens when the best player isn't the pick? That's an annual test in the NFL. But Cleveland's doing something different now. They're being forced to face it. Because Shedeur isn't just outplaying one guy. He's rewinding assumptions. He's making the case that performance matters more than pedigree. And that choice goes far beyond the field. It defines a culture. Inside team meetings, the calculus is shifting. Play calls are being written around Sanders' skills. Coaches are scripting motion and tempo. And the locker room, they're adjusting to a leader who leads by example and presence. Haslam sees it. The front office hears it. Even the pundits are starting to repeat it. There's tension now, yes. That's part of evolution. The airing of hidden insecurities. The interface of ego and truth. Throwaways like, what about development timelines? Feel hollow when held up to Sanders' consistency. And the longer they delay acknowledging it, the more obvious it becomes. You can't paper over talent. You can't box it in. And at some point, delaying the inevitable isn't protecting ego. It's eroding relevance. That's what makes this standoff so crucial. Because while Shedeur is quietly stacking film and driving the practice tempo, the Browns are facing a bigger test. Will they prioritize their ego or their future? What if this moment passes? What if they decide too little, too late? The backlash won't be about games lost. It will be about opportunity wasted. A franchise desperate for stability would have had it, and perhaps rejected it. That kind of regret isn't built overnight. It festers. It isolates. It becomes part why fans stop buying tickets, why players opt out, why credibility evaporates. But if they get this right, they reset a narrative. They win a city back. They signal they're not just following the system, they're forging it. The next few weeks will be scrimmages and preseason games. Noise will spike. Critics will line up. Headlines will question timing. Yet with every rep, Sanders doesn't tighten. He thrives. With every segment, he doesn't slow. He accelerates. This isn't about throwing a rookie into chaos. It's about unleashing the player already carrying the chaos inside, who just happens to channel it with precision and purpose. Because football is a room of politics. It's a battlefield of performance. And when one player reshapes that battlefield with every throw, every adjustment, every common chaos drive, that's when you don't just win games. You change the game. Shedeur Sanders isn't here to fit into a plan. He's here to expose outdated ones. Now, the Browns face a decision with real consequences. They can step forward with the moment, or let it slip through their fingers. That's who they are right now. Sanders, he's already decided who he is. The rest of Cleveland, heck, the rest of the league, will catch up soon if the Browns let the slug in their system slow down the rising star in their locker room. He's ready. The only question, is Cleveland ready for him? If the Cleveland Browns thought they could buy time, they were wrong. The calendar doesn't stop for indecision, and neither does a quarterback who's already playing like the moment is his. Shedeur Sanders isn't just having a good camp. He's forcing an existential reckoning inside the walls of Berea. And it's not just about who starts week 1 anymore. It's about what the Browns want to be. Because here's the brutal truth. Everyone sees it. Players know. Staff knows. Ownership knows. The media is starting to echo it louder every day. Shedeur Sanders is QB1. He just hasn't been officially handed the keys yet. But each delay in doing so makes the Browns look more like a team fighting their own progress than building toward the future. Behind the scenes, the political machine is grinding its gears. Front office execs are worried that admitting Shedeur is the best quarterback on the roster will expose the Gabriel pick as a miss. Coaches are scared of losing control over the depth chart narrative. Even some players, mostly veterans hanging on to reps, are adjusting their egos around the changing tide. But while others spin, Sanders remains still. He's been preparing for this kind of spotlight his entire life. This isn't some overnight sensation story. It's built off thousands of throws, years of criticism, and a relentless obsession with proving people wrong, but doing it on his terms. In the huddle, he's already earned respect, not just with zip on the ball or highlight reel plays, but in how he communicates protection shifts, how he takes blame for a missed route, how he stays late to work with third-string receivers, because it's not just about chemistry with stars. It's chemistry with everyone. And for every defensive player who tried to test him in red zone drills, he answered with poise and touch. Even Myles Garrett, never one offered cheap praise, was overheard telling a staffer, "He doesn't flinch. That's different." It is different, and that's the problem for the people clinging to the way things were. The NFL doesn't always reward what's right, but the Browns have a rare chance to do it here. Shedeur Sanders is making it impossible to ignore the merit. And when your best quarterback is the one you're also trying to downplay for internal optics, that's not just a personnel issue. That's a crisis of identity. Let's talk numbers. Sanders, through 2 weeks of camp, has completed over 75% of his passes in team drills. 3 touchdowns in 2-minute drills. 0 turnovers. That's not just efficient. That's elite. And he's done it with a second-team offense and minimal first-team exposure. Compare that to Dillon Gabriel, who's been handed reps like a corporate intern with a rich uncle. He's thrown multiple interceptions, struggled with timing, and has failed to establish command in high-leverage situations. Yet every depth chart update still has Gabriel listed ahead. Why? Because admitting Shedeur is better would unravel a narrative the staff and front office built around developmental windows and scheme fits. But football doesn't care about pre-written scripts. It cares about execution. And Sanders is executing like he's already a top 15 starter. Ownership knows. Jimmy Haslam didn't lean in for headlines when he publicly backed Shedeur. He leaned in because he sees what's happening. Haslam's decision to step in wasn't just about football. It was a shot across the bow at the structure itself. And now it's go time. The fan base is all in. Social media accounts track Sanders' practice reps like it's a campaign. Jerseys are selling out faster than the team can restock. National analysts are circling back to their scouting reports with a new tone. Maybe we were wrong about this kid. But none of that matters if the Browns don't let him lead. Every camp day that passes with Shedeur behind the scenes is a wasted day of growth for a quarterback who's clearly ready. He doesn't need a redshirt year. He doesn't need slow integration. He needs the reps, the platform, and the trust that comes with being the guy. Because when he is, Cleveland will finally have something they've lacked for decades. A quarterback who can lead on Sundays and Mondays through Saturdays. This isn't just a football debate anymore. This is a power struggle between old-school management and a new wave of player-first thinking. Sanders is part of a generation that doesn't just want to be coached. They want to be empowered. That makes some people in the building uncomfortable. But discomfort is where greatness begins. There's a reason Garrett, Amari Cooper, and even offensive line veterans are lobbying behind the scenes. They've been through enough failed QB experiments to spot the real deal when it walks through the door. And Sanders isn't asking for an anointing. He's demanding the job the right way, through work. Every rep, every correction, every quiet leadership moment off camera. There's something poetic about watching the youngest guy in a room act like the oldest soul. He's not barking orders or chasing headlines. He's showing up early, leaving late, and letting the football do the talking. And what it's saying I'm ready. So the Browns are now on the clock. Will they admit the 5th rounder is better than the 3rd? Will they swallow their pride and give the city a quarterback worth building around? Or will they double down on legacy politics and lose the moment? Either way, Shedeur's already ahead of schedule. He's changing perceptions, shifting locker room dynamics, and forcing the conversation. He's already a star. The only thing left is for the Browns to make it official. Because if they don't, and they waste this chance, it won't be long before another team gives him what Cleveland wouldn't. And that's when the story goes from franchise revival to franchise regret. The question isn't, can Shedeur Sanders be a franchise QB? The question is, will the Browns be smart enough to let him? And as we head into preseason week 2, with fans packing the stadium just to catch a glimpse of QB number 5 in warm-ups, one thing is certain. This isn't just a quarterback battle anymore. It's a reckoning. And Sanders, he's already winning it.